The Spirit Stone enhanced bullet struck Vexther's energy shield and passed through it like it was made of smoke. The alien commander staggered backward, dark ichor flowing from the wound in his chest, his black eyes wide with disbelief. "Impossible," he wheezed. "No human weapon can penetrate Kethver defenses." Marcus worked the bolt on his rifle, already lining up his second shot. "You're right. No human weapon alone. But this isn't just human technology." The fear-breaker device on his belt pulsed brighter, and more children began to wake from their induced nightmares. Around the chamber, the extraction machine started to emit warning sounds as its power source became unstable. Vexther looked around the chamber with growing alarm. "The harvested fear. It is dissipating." "How is this possible?" "Because you never understood what you were really taking," Marcus said. "Emma wasn't just afraid when she died. She was brave. She was hoping I would come for her. Even when she was trapped and hurt and terrified, she still believed her daddy would save her." He fired again, the second bullet taking the alien commander in the shoulder and spinning him around. "That's what you fed on. Not just her fear, but her courage fighting against that fear. Her love for me, even when I wasn't there to protect her." The extraction machine began to spark and smoke as the emotional energies it had been designed to contain started to feedback on themselves. The children were waking up faster now, their natural resilience reasserting itself as the psychic bonds weakened. "The Star Demon's power comes from fear." Gorath's voice echoed through the chamber as the massive Bigfoot warrior appeared in the entrance. His fur singed, but his eyes blazing with determination. "But human cubs are not just afraid. They hope, they trust, they love even in darkness." Thane entered from another passage, carrying a Kethver warrior's severed head in one massive hand. "The outer defenses are neutralized. Yak has reached the facility's main control systems." Vexther backed toward the extraction machine, his wounds leaking alien blood, but his stance still threatening. "Even if you destroy this facility, there are others. Hundreds of others across your world. You cannot save them all." "Watch us," Marcus replied, and put his third bullet directly through the alien's primary heart. Vexther collapsed, his body convulsing as the life left it. Around the chamber, the children were sitting up, looking around with confusion and growing hope. The youngest, a girl who couldn't have been more than 5, reached out toward Marcus with trembling arms. "Daddy?" she whispered. Marcus knelt beside her, his heart breaking and healing at the same time. "I'm not your daddy, sweetheart. But I'm a daddy, and I'm here to take you home." Jack's voice crackled through the communication system. "Marcus, we've got problems. The facility's self-destruct system has activated. The whole mountain is going to come down in about 10 minutes. Marcus looked around the chamber at 37 children in various states of awakening, most too weak to walk after days of psychic extraction. "We'll never get them all out through the cave system in time." "Then we don't go through the caves," Gorath rumbled. He moved to one of the chamber walls and placed his massive hands against it. "The Star Demons built this place to trap fear. They made it strong to contain power. But they made it too well." Thane joined his companion at the wall. Human courage and forest people strength combined as they were meant to be. The two Bigfoot warriors began to push against the chamber wall with coordinated effort. The alien material, designed to contain psychic energy but not brute physical force, began to crack and buckle. "The children," Marcus said urgently. "Some of them are too weak to move quickly." "Then we carry them?" Jack's voice was calm despite the circumstances. "All of them. Whatever it takes." Marcus began gathering the children, speaking softly to each one. "We're going to get you out of here. You're safe now. The monsters can't hurt you anymore." Most of them responded with the resilience that seemed built into human children. Even after days of systematic terror, they trusted the adults who had come to save them. They helped each other stand, supported the weaker ones, and followed Marcus's instructions without question. A few were in worse condition, catatonic from the sustained psychic assault. Marcus lifted one of these, a boy about Emma's age, and felt the child's arms wrap around his neck with desperate strength. "The wall is giving way," Thane reported. but the mountain's structural integrity is compromised. When this facility collapses, it will take a significant portion of the mountain with it. Gorth's massive fists punched through the weakened wall material, creating an opening large enough for them to escape through. Beyond was the mountainside, steep and treacherous, but leading down to safety. 8 minutes until detonation, Jack announced as he appeared in the chamber, his arms full of equipment salvaged from the facility's control systems. We need to move now. The evacuation was unlike anything from Marcus's worst nightmares or wildest dreams. 37 children, some barely conscious, being carried and guided down a mountainside in the dark while an alien facility prepared to explode behind them. Gorth and Thane moved with impossible sure-footedness, each carrying multiple children, while navigating terrain that would challenge an experienced climber. Marcus found himself keeping pace with beings that shouldn't have existed, carrying children he had never met but would die to protect, fleeing from an alien stronghold that had been considered impregnable just hours before. 4 minutes. Jack called out as they reached a more stable section of the mountainside. Some of the older children were walking on their own now, helping to support the younger ones. Marcus was amazed by their resilience, their capacity to function even after experiencing horrors that would have broken most adults. Almost there, Gorth rumbled encouragingly. The vehicles are just beyond that ridge. Marcus looked back once at the facility they had escaped. It looked peaceful from the outside, just another part of the mountain. But he could see the energy discharges beginning to flicker around its concealed entrances as the self-destruct sequence built toward its climax. 1 minute. Jack announced. They crested the ridge just as the mountain erupted. The explosion wasn't like anything from human warfare. Instead of fire and smoke, there was a pulse of pure energy that lit up the night sky like a second sunrise. The mountain didn't just collapse. It seemed to fold in on itself, reality bending and twisting as the Kethver technology consumed itself. The children watched in amazement as the place of their captivity simply ceased to exist, replaced by a crater that glowed with residual energy. Several of them cheered, their young voices carrying across the valley. "It's really over?" one of the older boys asked. "This part is," Jack replied, already coordinating with the rescue vehicles that were approaching their position. "But there are more facilities, more children who need help." "Then we help them," Marcus said simply. The next few hours were a blur of medical personnel, government officials, and reporters who seemed to appear from nowhere. The children were taken to a secure medical facility where they could be properly examined and reunited with their families. Most were in remarkably good physical condition, though the psychological effects of their ordeal would take time to heal. Marcus found himself sitting in a military debriefing room, facing a panel of officers who seemed to be having trouble believing what they were being told. "Let me make sure I understand this correctly," a general with more stars on his collar than Marcus could count was saying. "You're telling us that 2 civilian contractors and a software engineer, assisted by 2 cryptid entities, successfully infiltrated and destroyed a fortified alien installation that our best military analysts considered impregnable?" Jack leaned back in his chair with a slight smile. "That's the short version, yes, sir." "And these Bigfoot allies of yours?" another officer interjected. "They're willing to cooperate with us in identifying and neutralizing other Kethver facilities?" Gorth, who had been sitting quietly in a chair that looked comically small beneath his massive frame, spoke for the first time since the debriefing began. "The star demons have hunted both our peoples. This makes us allies. We will fight alongside humans until every nest of star demons is destroyed." "The children," Marcus said quietly, cutting through the military discussion. "What happens to the children?" "They'll be taken care of," the general assured him. "Full medical and psychological support. Their families have been notified. Most will make full recoveries. That's not what I meant." Marcus stood, suddenly feeling very tired. "What happens to the next group of children? The ones still trapped in other facilities? The ones who will be taken if we don't act fast enough?" The room fell silent as the officers exchanged glances. Finally, the general leaned forward. Mr. Chun, are you volunteering for additional missions? Marcus thought about Emma, about the sound of her voice calling for him through the rubble. Then he thought about the 37 children they had rescued, about the trust in their eyes when they realized someone had come to save them. I'm not volunteering, he said quietly. I'm stating a fact. Those children need someone who understands what their families are going through. They need someone who knows what it costs to lose a child and what it means to get a second chance to save one. Jack stood as well. Where Marcus goes, I go. And where we go, Gorath. The mountain air bit at Marcus's face as he crouched behind a fallen log, his modified rifle ready in his hands. 6 hours of hiking through terrain that would have challenged an experienced mountaineer, and they were finally approaching the Kethver facility. The 3 days of intensive training with Jack and the 2 Bigfoot warriors had prepared him as much as possible, but nothing could have prepared him for what he was feeling now. It wasn't fear. He had expected fear, had steeled himself for it. Instead, there was a cold certainty settling in his chest, like ice forming over deep water. Every step closer to the facility brought Emma's face into sharper focus in his mind. Every breath of the thin mountain air carried the memory of her laugh, her questions about why the sky was blue, her absolute trust that Daddy would always keep her safe. Contact ahead, Jack whispered into his throat microphone. The retired SEAL was virtually invisible in his camouflage gear, blending perfectly with the rocky terrain. 2 sentries on the ridge. Kethver scouts. Marcus adjusted his position to get a better view through the scope Jack had taught him to use. The alien sentries looked exactly like the descriptions he had studied during their planning sessions, but seeing them in person was different. They stood nearly 8 feet tall, with elongated limbs and gray, leathery skin that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Their heads were too large for their bodies, dominated by black eyes that reflected no emotion Marcus could recognize, but what struck him most was how they moved. There was an arrogance to their posture, a casual dismissal of any possible threat. They stood in the open, making no effort to conceal themselves, as if the very idea that something might challenge them was too ridiculous to consider. They've been the apex predator for so long they've forgotten what it feels like to be hunted. Thane's deep voice rumbled in his earpiece. The Bigfoot warrior was somewhere upslope from their position, moving through terrain that would be impassable for humans with the silence of falling snow. That arrogance will cost them, Gorath added from his own position. It cost them when they first hunted our people. It will cost them again. Jack's voice came through the comm system, calm and professional. Marcus, you remember the plan? The sentries need to be eliminated simultaneously. If one of them manages to signal the facility, we lose any element of surprise. Marcus checked his weapon one more time. The Spirit Stone modifications that Thane and Gorath had made gave it an almost organic feel, as if the rifle was alive and eager for the coming fight. According to the 2 Bigfoot warriors, the crystalline formations would channel his focused emotions into the bullets themselves, allowing them to penetrate Kethver energy shields. The key is not just anger, Gorath had explained during their training sessions. Anger alone is unfocused, wasteful. You must bind your rage to your purpose. Think not just of your pain, but of why that pain demands justice. Think of the children still trapped in that facility. Think of the fathers across your world who will feel what you feel if the star demons succeed. I'm ready, Marcus whispered into his microphone. Gorath, you take the left sentry. Marcus, you have the right. On my mark, Cute. Marcus exhaled slowly and squeezed the trigger. The rifle kicked against his shoulder with more force than he expected, but the shot was true. The bullet, charged with his focused rage and determination, passed through the Kethver's energy shield as if it wasn't there and took the creature center mass. The alien crumpled without a sound, 50 yards away. Gorath's sentry fell at the same instant, the massive Bigfoot warrior having moved close enough to strike with his bare hands. The Kethver's neck snapped with a sound like breaking timber. Clean kills. Jack's voice carried a note of satisfaction. Moving to phase 2? They regrouped at the entrance to the cave system that Thane and Gorth had discovered during their reconnaissance. The opening was barely large enough for the humans to squeeze through, hidden behind a waterfall that would mask any sounds they might make. For the two Bigfoot warriors, it was an uncomfortably tight fit. "This tunnel will take us directly beneath their facility," Thane explained as they prepared to enter. "But the path is treacherous. Your people abandoned these ways long ago because they are dangerous even for us." Jack distributed climbing gear and portable lights. "Stay close, stay quiet, and trust your guide. Thane has navigated these caves more times than any of us have climbed stairs." The journey underground was unlike anything Marcus had ever experienced. The cave system was vast and complex, with passages branching off in every direction. Some led to underground rivers that roared with invisible force. Others opened onto chasms so deep their lights couldn't find the bottom. Thane moved through the maze with confidence born of centuries of familiarity, but even he had to stop occasionally to test the stability of ancient rock formations. "Your people built the first settlements near these mountains because of caves like these," Gorth explained during one of their brief rest stops. "Shelter from storms, protection from the predators that once walked this land. But they forgot the old ways when their technology advanced. The star demons make the same mistake your people did," Thane added. "They rely on their machines to tell them what is real. They cannot imagine paths their sensors do not detect." After 2 hours of careful navigation, they reached their destination. Thane held up a massive hand for silence and pointed upward. Through a crack in the cave ceiling, artificial light filtered down. They were directly beneath the Kethver facility. Jack activated a small device that looked like a modified tablet computer. The screen showed a three-dimensional map of the structure above them, generated from satellite data and enhanced by intelligence gathered during previous scouting missions. 37 human children," he whispered, his voice tight with controlled anger. "Ages ranging from 5 to 14. They're being held in the central extraction chamber." The facility was larger than it had appeared in the satellite photos. The Kethver had carved it directly into the mountain, using their energy manipulation technology to hollow out spaces that would have taken human engineers years to excavate. The central chamber was surrounded by concentric rings of defensive positions, power generators, and what appeared to be laboratory spaces. "The extraction device is here," Jack pointed to the center of the facility. "Our intel suggests it's some kind of amplification matrix. They're using the children's fear to power it up for a massive ritual that would give them enough energy to break through Earth's orbital defenses." Marcus studied the layout, comparing it to the maps they had memorized during their planning sessions. "How do we get to them?" "There are too many guards between us and the extraction chamber." "We don't sneak past the guards," Gorth said grimly. "We eliminate them. All of them." "The plan we discussed," Thane confirmed. "Create chaos on the facility's perimeter, draw their forces away from the central chamber. Then strike fast and hard at the extraction device." Jack began distributing the specialized equipment they had brought. Each pack contained modified explosives that had been treated with spirit stone particles, making them capable of damaging Kethver energy barriers. There were also communication devices that would allow them to coordinate their attacks across the facility. "Remember," Jack said as they prepared to begin the assault, "the Kethver think like predators, not like soldiers. They're used to hunting prey that runs. When something fights back effectively, they don't adapt quickly. That's our advantage." Marcus checked his gear one final time. In addition to his modified rifle, he carried a sidearm, 2 grenades enhanced with spirit stone, and a device that Gorth had called a fear breaker. According to the Bigfoot warrior, it would disrupt the psychic connection between the Kethver and their captured victims. "The children will be terrified," Thane warned. "Not just from their captivity, but from the extraction process itself. The star demons will have been feeding off their fear for days. They may not trust anyone at first, even rescuers." "That's where you come in," Jack told Marcus. "You're not a soldier. You're a father. Those kids will recognize that, even in their terror, they'll trust you in ways they won't trust us." The weight of responsibility settled on Marcus's shoulders like a physical burden. 37 children, all depending on their mission's success. All counting on him to be the father he hadn't been able to be for Emma. They split up according to the plan. Jack would create a distraction at the facility's main power generator, drawing the majority of the Kethver guards away from the central chamber. Gorth and Thane would attack the secondary defensive positions, using their knowledge of Kethver tactics to maximize confusion and casualties among the aliens. Marcus would use the chaos to reach the extraction chamber and free the children. The assault began at exactly midnight. Jack's explosives lit up the night sky as they tore through the facility's outer defenses. The power generator erupted in a pillar of blue-white flame that could be seen for miles. Emergency lighting activated throughout the complex as Kethver warriors rushed to respond to the threat. Marcus climbed through the crack in the cave ceiling and found himself in what appeared to be a storage area. Alien equipment lined the walls, devices whose purpose he couldn't begin to guess. The air hummed with energy and car. Marcus Chen stood at the edge of what used to be his backyard, staring at the smoking crater where his house once stood. The morning air still carried the acrid smell of alien weaponry, a metallic tongue that made his stomach turn. 24 hours ago, he had been a normal father living in suburban Colorado. Now he was the last member of his family, watching rescue workers pull charred debris from the hole where his 7-year-old daughter Emma had been sleeping. The creatures that did this called themselves the Kethver Dominion. They arrived 3 months ago in ships that blotted out the sun over major cities worldwide. Their message was simple and delivered in perfect English through every communication device on Earth. Humanity had 48 hours to surrender completely or face extinction. When the world's leaders refused, the aliens began their systematic destruction of human settlements. But this wasn't random destruction. The Kethver had a specific method. They would target families, especially those with children, believing that breaking human spirit through personal loss would be more effective than simply destroying military targets. Emma had been playing in her room when their scout ship appeared overhead. Marcus had been at work, helpless, watching the news footage of the beam that vaporized half his neighborhood. "Mr. Chun?" A voice broke through his thoughts. Marcus turned to see a woman in a crisp military uniform approaching. She was tall, with steel-gray hair pulled back severely, and carried herself with the bearing of someone used to command. "I'm Colonel Sarah Martinez, U.S. Special Operations Command." "I'm sorry for your loss." Marcus nodded, not trusting his voice. What was there to say? His wife had died in a car accident 2 years ago. Emma was all he had left, and now she was gone too. The aliens had taken everything. "Mr. Chun, I know this is a difficult time, but I need to ask you some questions." "Your daughter. The reports say she survived the initial blast?" The memory hit Marcus like a physical blow. Emma had been trapped in the basement when the house collapsed. He could hear her crying, calling for him through the rubble. It took the rescue team 6 hours to reach her, and by then the Kethver had returned to finish what they started. "She lived for 3 hours after we pulled her out," Marcus said quietly. "The medics said she wouldn't have felt much pain, but I know they were lying. She kept asking for her mommy, asking why the sky monsters hurt her." Colonel Martinez's expression softened slightly. "The reason I'm here, Mr. Chun, is because your daughter's case has attracted some unusual attention. There's something you need to know about the Kethver, something the government hasn't made public yet." She gestured for him to follow her to a black SUV parked on the street. Inside, she handed him a tablet displaying what looked like surveillance footage. "This was recorded by one of our satellites during the attack on your home. Watch carefully." Marcus saw his neighborhood from above, peaceful and quiet in the early morning. Then the Kethver ship appeared, a sleek black triangle about the size of a city bus. The energy beam lanced down, but instead of the quick, clean destruction he had expected, the footage showed something else. The beam lingered, pulsing with different colors. "They're not just killing randomly," Colonel Martinez explained. "The Kethver are conducting some kind of energy harvesting operation. They target children specifically because human emotional energy at that age is apparently more potent. Your daughter. She was conscious and afraid for a long time before she died. They were feeding off that fear. Marcus felt something cold settle in his chest. It wasn't just grief anymore. It was rage, pure and burning. You're telling me they killed my little girl to eat her terror? I'm telling you that your daughter died fighting something that sees human children as a delicacy. And I'm here because there's someone who wants to help you do something about it. The SUV pulled into what looked like an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of Denver. Inside, the space had been converted into a makeshift command center, with computers, maps, and communication equipment scattered across folding tables. But what drew Marcus's attention immediately was the man standing in the center of it all. He was massive, easily 6.5 feet tall, with shoulders that looked like they could support a building. His hair was cropped short in military fashion, and his face bore the kind of scars that came from serious combat. He wore simple civilian clothes, but everything about his posture screamed professional soldier. Marcus Chun, the man said, extending a hand that completely engulfed Marcus's when they shook. I'm Jack Morrison. Navy SEAL, retired. Well, mostly retired. This is the man I told you about, Colonel Martinez said. Jack has been hunting the Kethver since they killed his unit in Afghanistan. He's developed some unconventional methods. Jack's expression darkened. Conventional methods don't work against these things. They've got energy shields that laugh off our best weapons, ships that move faster than anything we've ever built, and they're strong enough to tear a man in half with their bare hands. Fighting them fair is suicide. Then how do we fight them at all? Marcus asked. Jack smiled, and there was something wild in his expression. We don't fight them fair. We fight them human. Follow me. He led Marcus through the warehouse to a heavy metal door that looked like it belonged on a bank vault. Jack input a long code submitted to a retinal scan and pressed his palm to a sensor. The door opened with a deep, hydraulic hiss. Beyond was a corridor that stretched into darkness, lit only by emergency lighting. The walls were rough stone, and Marcus realized they were underground, much deeper underground than should have been possible for a warehouse basement. What is this place? Marcus asked as they walked. Government built it in the 50s, Jack replied. Cold War bunker, designed to house essential personnel in case of nuclear war. Been abandoned for decades. Perfect for our needs. They emerged into a vast underground chamber, easily the size of an aircraft hangar. But what took Marcus's breath away wasn't the size of the space. It was what was in it. Two creatures stood near the far wall, and Marcus's first instinct was to run. They were enormous, each standing at least 9 feet tall, covered in thick, dark fur that looked almost black in the artificial lighting. Their faces were vaguely human but primitive, with heavy brows and massive jaws. Their eyes held an intelligence that was unmistakably sentient. Marcus, Jack said calmly, I'd like you to meet Goreth and Thane. They're the reason we're going to make the Kethver pay for what they've done. One of the creatures, the slightly larger one, stepped forward. When it spoke, its voice was deep and rumbling, like distant thunder. Jack friend brings the father who grieves. We smell the pain on him. We smell the anger. Marcus stared in shock. It talks. They talk. Bigfoot isn't just a myth, Jack explained. They're real, they're intelligent, and they've been hiding from humanity for centuries. But the Kethver? The Kethver have been hunting them even longer. The second creature, Thane, moved closer. The star demons came to our world first, many of your centuries ago. They took our cubs, fed on their life force until there was nothing left but emptiness. We survived by hiding, by running, by becoming myths to your people. But hiding didn't work forever, Goreth continued. The star demons followed us here, to this world. Now they hunt your young as they once hunted ours. The pain you feel, Father who grieves, we know this pain. Jack pulled out a chair and gestured for Marcus to sit. 3 weeks ago, I was leading a reconnaissance mission in the mountains outside Kabul. We'd received reports of unusual energy signatures. and command wanted us to investigate. What we found was a HFY harvesting operation. His voice grew quiet, distant. They had taken about 30 kids from local villages. We watched through our scopes as they as they extracted their fear. My team wanted to call for backup, wait for artillery support, but those kids were dying while we watched. So I made a command decision. You attacked alone, Marcus said. We attacked and got slaughtered. The HFY killed 4 of my men in about 10 seconds. I would have died too, but Gorath and Thane showed up. Apparently they'd been tracking that particular HFY unit for months. Gorath's massive head nodded. The SEAL warrior fought bravely, even when his weapons failed. We saw honor in him. We chose to reveal ourselves. They saved my life, Jack continued, and we saved those kids. But more than that, we learned something important. The HFY have weaknesses. They're not invincible. They're just really good at making us think they are. Thane moved to a table covered with what looked like alien technology mixed with human weapons. The star demons draw power from fear and pain. But they are vulnerable to other emotions? Courage makes their shields weak. Righteous anger disrupts their energy systems. And humans who fight alongside the forest people. We create a resonance they cannot defend against. Marcus felt something stirring in his chest, something that pushed back against the crushing weight of his grief. You're talking about revenge? I'm talking about justice, Jack corrected. The HFY think they understand humans. They think we're just another species to be harvested. They don't understand what happens when you take everything from a human being and leave them with nothing to lose. Gorath approached Marcus, moving with surprising gentleness for such a massive creature. Your